Hey everyone, you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I am your host, Andrew Davis, and this episode is brought to you by my sponsors, which is my shirt on Redbubble. So go buy my shirt, everybody, because, well, it's how I support this show. It's making fun at Gundam, Taco Bell, the most interesting man in the world, Fallout, and whatever else you want to make fun of. It's available in 16 different colors, as well as in a mini skirt, which if you want to buy us in a mini skirt, please go ahead. I will be thoroughly impressed because I think it's funny. And that mini skirt is all available on Redbubble, and all the proceeds actually go to help keep this show alive. So if you're a Gundam fan, that's wonderful. Also, BCW Supplies is a sponsor too, and it's an affiliate link. So use Pop Anime Comics to get 10% off your entire order. Bags, boards, long boxes, anything to protect your collectibles. Again, inflation sucks. I got a feeling it's going to get worse, so you might as well save yourself some money in the process and support this show. And as people know, I am coming to Substack to talk about comic book investing, as well as locals, depending on your political ideologies. And so I'm going to give you a choice on how you want to support me. But if you want to learn how to do that, well, I will keep you informed on all of that. But I'm not going to bore you with the rest of my sponsors because I have with me comic writer and board game developer Chris Brown. So welcome back to the show.
How's it going, man? I hadn't heard about your BCW thing.
Yeah.
It's a good
sponsor, and people can use it. You cannot use it. You can do whatever you want. You know, it's up to you guys. But if you want to support this show,
I use their boards and sleeves anyway, so might as well boards and bags rather sleeves. I was just doing card sleeves for a game.
Yeah, no. It's just a way how to support this show. I get an affiliate link, and it's just the way it is. But again, I've been saying it. You get your stuff cheaper, please do. It's whatever. I at this point, that's all I'm going to say. But you got a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be launching Slaughterville Book 2 soon. And I think it's 12 graphic novels right now, if I'm not mistaken. But let's catch everybody up because there are new people who are going to be seeing this. There are people who have forgotten exactly what Slaughterville is. Welcome to Slaughterville, what Laughing Rogue is up to, and everything in between. And so what exactly is, I guess, the source material before we really dive into everything else that's happening?
Sure. The source material for the Slaughterville books is of course the Slaughterville board game, in which I know everybody wants to get and should get because we have the director's cut that should be shipping within the next week, and it's a horror-based board game where you are the typical horror movie characters like the nerd, the jock, the stoner, etc. And you try to go through the town to find items, clues, and allies to beat the villains. Well, what we wanted to do with the book is we wanted to tell those backstories, the side stories. This is what's going on behind the game. And that's, it's just one story. You build your own story in the game. We just wanted to tell our story.
So we're going to table the book for a second because I do want to talk about the game because
Sure.
I think it's super interesting because obviously, games are fascinating. And a lot of people are doing board games. A lot of big companies are doing board games. A lot of small companies are doing it, and everybody in between. And so what is this like to really build out this game and also have it have a lot of replay value and have it that it can be that no game is ever the same and that you do have the idea that there's a bunch of villains and a bunch of different scenarios and that the game itself can actually beat you in a lot of ways too, because not every game is like that. So what was this like in really developing it? Because I think that's a big problem right now with games is that they can get boring after a while.
Yeah, I wanted to make something that had, again, you look at your shelf and you see all the different kinds of games that you have. I wanted to make it where you would have all of those games in one box. And modularity, replayability, like you said, variety was really the key, one of the driving components behind this. And the fact that we have over 70 characters that you can play as, tons of villains, 18, I believe, different locations, because you only use 6 per game. So, I mean, that's a lot of different possible setups. And each villain changes the way the game plays. That each villain and each location comes with their own themed deck. So you're not going to find the same stuff in the antique store that you do in the asylum. They're completely different, themed differently. In fact,
Yeah, and even
no, please.
Yeah, and even to go off of that, because obviously, you've expanded it, I think now at least
Mhm.
once, if not twice, with Slaughterville 2 and even with Slaughterville 3,
Yep.
and then obviously going into the director's cut and adding those extra modules and adding those extra villains, and also going into the idea saying, oh, snap, maybe we could tweak a little bit of this over here. And so, what is that like for you to do as well? Because I think that's something that certain games are not necessarily thrilled about doing. And even though they have expansions, they don't want to necessarily tweak it. And I mean, there are issues with games like Catan and even, other games. And I'm blanking right now, but I think that the point is made where what is that like for you? Because I think that is a very big deal. And I think it's also important because, not to go into the business side of things, but when you do expand it, people then need to get that first thing
Mhm.
too to add to the expansion to totally max out. And then, when you get it around, you get repeat customers coming back. And I think that's a big issue right now where everybody has that problem. And if you could build in that audience and almost create it as a necessity on a business level, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a very good business model.
Yeah, I Slaughterville 2 was a standalone expansion, so you could play that without having the first one or the director's cut. But like you said, Slaughterville 3 is villains only. We added 4 new villains to the game, so that one you do need one of the other ones to play. And I tried to make things. See, I'm sure you've played CCGs before, and they have what's called power creep, right? So as each new set is released, everything just gets more and more and more powerful until the old stuff is pointless. The first set doesn't compare to the latest. Um, I did my best to avoid that with balancing by, well, one, making it scalable from 1 player to 6 players, uh, but also everything had to fit and work together. So that was the main goal. Like if I make a new villain or a new location today, it must. There's no question about it. I won't allow it in if it doesn't work with the old stuff.
So to even talk about that, because obviously, I'm not an expert in games.
Sure.
I've played a bunch of stuff, but I haven't played everything, and it is not exactly my wheelhouse. But I do know the idea that there gets to a point, and this happens in video games too, that you become overpowered, and then all the stuff is sort of pointless. Where the boss on level 1, you kill it in one punch when you're on
Mhm.
level 50, and even in Pokemon, and I'm sure everybody's going to get this analogy. There's a concept called grinding,
Mhm.
and if you grind before the first gym, and then you get to level 40, which I've done that, and I know a lot of other people have done that too. The game sort of becomes pointless and becomes less challenging. And so, what is that like to say? Hey, look, everybody starts at level 1, and that a certain module might be more difficult in Slaughterville 3, but it also does fit in, and nothing is so broken where that new villain isn't gonna be overly powered. Because I think that that's a real problem at this point collectively, and I think that it also creates a fear because a bunch of new people are coming into games, and then if all of a sudden something's too powerful and then you're not used to the rules, I mean, it kind of fucks shit up.
Yep. Yeah. Again, our rules are very basic. For the base game, it's honestly you get 2 actions a turn: move and encounter. Right. So you're going to move, or you're going to explore the location and look at the cards. But as far as what you were saying, I tried to minimize that. How to say grinding. For instance, let's use the Dream Demon as an example. Here's our Freddy Krueger analog. Okay, with him, what he's trying to do is find the 5 pieces of his song. So 1, 2, Freddy's come, and all this. And once he has all 5 of those, then he's brought into the real world and he wins. Um, so having that, it's called an artificial timer, because it's not technically counting down rounds or anything. Although there are some villains that do that. Again, but this allows that tension. Like, oh my God, is it coming up next? Is it coming up next? I have to worry. I can't sit there and turtle. I can't grind. I can't put it off. I have to be aggressive. it just creates the tension and the atmosphere that we're looking for.
Yeah, and isn't that something too that's interesting because, this is a little bit of a board game combined with a little bit of narration and a little bit of that D&D. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that's also becoming interesting because obviously there is an ending to this.
Yeah.
And you can't make this game into a quest game. And it's not meant to be a quest game. It's meant to be that if you fight, the werewolf or
Mm-hmm.
a necromancer and you beat the necromancer doesn't continue and you don't go on like a tribal journey into the ore of the mine through the dragon's tail and into fairyland, for lack of a better word. I know players who have done that.
Yes.
It's I don't know how they're doing it. It's fascinating. But all jokes aside, there and all as much as I love going into fairyland and it's a fun place to go. On multiple levels, and you can interpret that however anybody wants to interpret that. That's up to you. What is this like to have that element in there because it does attract new players, but it also says, hey, we're not going on a nine-year quest,
Exactly.
here.
Yeah.
And no offense to anybody who plays D&D, but it's kind of intimidating if you have a 9-year quest in Dungeons and Dragons for somebody to jump in and be like, can I join the party?
Yeah, I am a guy that loves RPGs. Don't get me wrong. Now, the people in the house here don't really play them with me, so I'm more of an RPG collector than anything else. But I do love a good RPG. In fact, I've had a lot of people on interviews with it. But our time for the game is usually about an hour and a half. Sometimes it can stretch to 2 hours, especially if you're just learning. But I felt the reason I did that is because the average movie is about an hour and a half, 2 hours, right? And I wanted you to tell your own story. And if you can tell your own story of your horror movie character going through this game in that hour and a half, we did our job well. And again, don't get me wrong, you're probably going to die. But if you die, you just come back with a new character. Like a new character comes into town and you're taking control of that character. So, I mean,
So let's even talk about this because, and I'm sure you're well aware of this. The average attention span right now for
mm-hmm,
people is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And so you have to constantly be, entertaining somebody and doing something in a movie and doing something when somebody's not seeking something out. Obviously, if you're seeking out how to fix your car, you're going to watch all of that content because you got a problem and trying to fix that problem. But in a movie, if something doesn't happen for 7 seconds, I get bored. And especially, it's different if you're in a movie theater because you actively sought to be in that
mm-hmm.
theater. But if you're streaming it and you're watching it on a streaming service, and so what is that like? Because I'm a big Catan player. I like playing games. Like I think it's the island where you're playing against the game. And if something's not happening, this game gets boring.
Yes.
And even when, and I mean, me and my friends play Catan, we play like a 50-minute Catan game, and we're not bored. But if we were to play like a 9-hour Catan game, and so what is that like? Because I think that's a real issue sometimes with games too, is that it's good to have quick games and a
Mm-hmm.
game that is 30 minutes, but it also can be problematic because, well, now it's like, okay, cool. Are we going to play another round of this? And I think it's tricky to find the right balance. And so what is that like? Because I think that's an issue. And it's not a collective board game issue. It's a collective whole entertainment issue.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a challenge. That is because the last thing you want is this. Okay, somebody's sitting there playing on their phone while they're supposed to be playing the game and interacting, right? So one way we've done it is each of the location cards has a story on it. So they'll read the little blurb, and people should be paying attention to what's going on because everything you do builds upon the story you're trying to tell. But also the villains. A lot of them require you to work together. Or, in fact, the new villain that we had, the zombie horde, has a flicking mechanism almost like a shuffleboard kind of thing, where you're trying to flick a disc to hit a bullseye and to see how many zombies you kill that way. So everybody's around like, oh my god, are you going to hit this or not, kind of a thing. So it's a lot of. I'm glad I studied 8 years of psychology to learn how the mind works, to be able to incorporate things like that to draw people in.
Yeah, because I just think that you know what it is. I mean, if you're sitting around the whole table and you got six
Mhm.
people, and I've done it, I know other people have done it when I've played games, where we're very phone addicted, and people also get bored when things
Yes.
aren't happening.
Yes.
One of the nice things about Catan, and the reason why I bring it up is that every dice roll matters
Hmm.
because everybody can get resources on anybody's turn versus a game of Monopoly where, and I'm using those two as perfect examples because technically in Monopoly, when it's not your turn, you could have nothing to do with that position unless you're collecting rent.
Yeah.
But if you know that somebody's on the other side of the board and you have no property there, you don't have any relevance on that side. And so I just think it's interesting. And then obviously the final thing I want to touch upon before we dive into the book, and even that, and the other side of this is obviously board games are fascinating right now with their printing components
Hmm.
because a lot of people do not print in the US. Printing
Right.
in the US is expensive. Printing, unless you're printing large quantities, it's not economical. And what I mean by large quantities, like literally 20,000 plus units
Yeah.
um, or more. And you might even need to print more than that for it to be economical in the US. Or you might have to charge more. I don't know the full economics of that. But what is that like? Because obviously you've had issues in China, you've had
Hmm.
issues in other areas, and so what have you dealt with, and what does even that scene look like? Because I think that's something that people don't understand.
Sure. There's nothing I'd love more than to be able to print in the U.S. But like you mentioned, it isn't really financially feasible. They want to charge, like, for an example, one game that I priced out, they wanted $40,000 to print it in the U.S. The same time, I could get it printed over in China for eight. Even if you add that overseas shipping, it didn't come near that 40,000. For some, again, a small publisher like myself, it isn't financially viable to print over here in the U.S. right now.
So,
As,
so, so even tabling the economics, I mean, right now, from my understanding of China, beyond every other political problem that's going on,
all right,
yeah, and we don't have to touch on that. But part of the issue is political because cities are getting locked down,
sure.
factories are getting locked down. Um, I don't know exactly how much of it is hyperbole and how much of it is accurate to the degree, but it's somewhere probably in the middle. Um, and obviously, sometimes a factory is unoperatable. So, what is that like for you? Because I know people print their books in China. I know people
Yep.
print a lot of stuff in China, and China has some serious cool technology with doing this stuff. And so, what is that like in even navigating it? Because one of the things I think people don't understand what's going on in comics right now and even in game design is that sometimes the issue is that the printing is all fucked up and that they're backlogged and then you get a week shut down city and maybe that person, maybe the factory's not shut down, but maybe they're having a worker shortage. And so what has that been like to navigate? Because I think people are very quick to get pissed off,
They are.
right now. And I'm guilty of that too, especially when I'm waiting 6 months for something. I'm like, hey, where's my product?
Hmm.
And so what has that been like? Because I think this is a real issue. And I think nobody's talking about this.
It is an unfortunate thing that's going on with the zero. What is it? The zero COVID policy that they have, and we were supposed to ship the Slaughterville director's cut in April. But with shutdowns and everything, it's only getting shipped out next week. And it's not just the city shutting down, it's what containers are available, what ships are able to run. Um, so there are a lot of different aspects that come into it. And like you mentioned, some people will just not come back from vacation, or they get locked in for a month, and there's nothing they can do about it. But I will say, as long as you're honest with someone and you tell them, look, I'm sorry, here's exactly what's happening. As soon as I know more, I will keep you up to date. And you keep them honestly up to date on a regular basis. Most people are going to be understanding. Sure, There's always going to be some that are impatient, and I
I don't
get
even
it.
think it's so much. Sorry to interrupt. I don't even think it's so much impatience. I just think it's a lack of understanding of what's going on because I'm not a logistics China
Sure.
operational guy, and so for me to actually know how this
Hmm.
process works, and a lot of people, and obviously I'm in this space, so I know a lot more than the average person. And
Hmm.
you're in this space, and anybody who's produced a book. But if you're just saying, "Look, I just want to play this game with my friends," how can the average person understand saying, hey, look, here's A, B, C, D, and E, and F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, and I go through half the alphabet here for a reason is going on. And
Yeah.
so I think it's just an issue of them understanding. And it's the same thing even when I'm prepping up for an interview. I don't think people fully understand what that looks like and
Yep.
how much effort it goes into. And it changes the way your day operates. If I have a 9 o'clock interview at night, that affects me waking up at a certain hour. It affects me what I do the day before and the day after. And I think once people will begin to say, oh, I get it, I think people are more understanding. That's just my opinion at the very least. But I think
Yeah.
that that's something that it's not so much that people are angry. They're just like, I don't even understand. And then if somebody gets like a 20-minute education, like, oh,
Hmm.
I am sorry. Let me like buy you a beer.
And that's what I try to do with all of my updates is I explained it. If I have any notice from my, because I use Gameland over in China, really good people. They've always been good to me. Okay. If they weren't good to me, I'd tell you that too. I'd be like, oh no, they're jackasses. But no, they're not. They've always been good. Um, and if I have something from them, I will actually paste that communication into the update. So you can say, this is exactly what they said. This is exactly what I know. So you know everything I know. And I think that actually helps to bring them, make them feel more of a part of it and more, have more ownership of it. So when they feel like they're actually privy to internal communications. So,
Yeah, no, I agree completely, and it's just an issue, and I think that people a lot of times just want their things, and they don't want that education. It goes back to the idea that people don't want to know how the sausage is made. They don't want to
mhm.
know how they got their bacon, and they just want it, and they don't want to be exposed to it. They don't want to know where their milk came from. They know it came from a cow, and that's all they
Mhm.
want to know. And I'm not going to go ruin milk for anybody, bacon, sausage, or eggs. That's not what we do on this show because I like those items too.
Mhm.
Um, but I could tell you I could ruin cake for you if you would like. Anytime. If somebody wants me to ruin cake for you, I'm more than happy to. But and I put bacon on my cake, so I'll ruin that too. But anyhow, I do want to back out of the game stuff, and the reason why I wanted to talk
Sure.
about it is that the comic book and the graphic novel
Mhm.
is fully based off of Slaughterville.
Yes.
And so you did the first one, and that one was successful on Indiegogo.
Yep.
And then now you're on the second one. And what is this like? Because in many ways, and even what is the premise for this? Because and you sort of touched upon it a little bit ago, but what is this like? Because it's an alternative version, it's an expansion, it's a different look at it, and I guess it's in the same vein as the board game, but it's also, I guess, a different angle per se, and it's also more of a narrative angle. I think is a good way to put it.
Yeah. Absolutely, because again, I love to hear about the stories that people tell me when they're playing the game. Think of this as if it's my story, as if this is what happened when I played the game, and I'm giving you insight into different parts of the town, the different villains. Like the first one, we started off with the Beast Within. That was our werewolves. That was literally the first villain I made for the game. Now we're continuing on and we're going on to the slasher. The slasher is our Jason Voorhees analog, and she just really, really loves killing. It's like it's like her main goal in life is to just randomly kill things. Especially if you went to the cabins. But now, see, something happened at the end of the first book where she's no longer bound to the cabin. Now she's free to run the whole town, and that's what this book is about. Her history. It actually gives you the origin of the slasher in this book.
So let's even talk about this, because this is where this gets really interesting, right? So one of the things that's interesting about this is that obviously, and I think it provides a bit of a challenge, because anytime you have anything in media and then you go produce either a book, a graphic novel, a video game, that creates an additional influence on what's going to affect the source material, and or the source material might affect that unless there's a direct adaptation. You know, if you have like season 1 of a show and then season 2 happens, obviously that's sort of in the same vein. Or if you have a movie that ends the entire series, it's somewhat in the same vein. Or if you have a comic book that continues story. But what is this like for you? Because anything that you throw to the slasher is obviously your interpretation. It's, as you said, almost as your game,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. But it also, if you give some background information and then I go play and I read it and I'm like a diehard fan, that's going to influence the way I play. And so what is that like to say, okay, I can't give D&E, because that might really change the way a game operates and the game operates, but also I have to throw C in there, which does carry a little bit of influence. So what is that like? Because this is where things get tricky, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's if you think of this as it won't change the way she operates in the game, but it'll let you look at her motivations a little bit differently. Because, like I said, every deck tells a story. So this just gives a little bit more backstory to her attacking, to her deck, to why she's doing what she's doing.
But it also, though, does it does change the game to some degree too, though, because if I'm playing and now I have inside information on the slasher, you know, it can influence me as a player. And then if I hand the graphic novel to my friend and he takes it home and he reads it, and then we play the next week and we're going up against the slasher, it's not going to change the way she moves, but we might make different decisions based on what we know. And so that's where this gets interesting, because if every choice, and let's say that the slasher is kicking me and my friends' ass in the game, you know, and then we read and like, okay, cool, we now sort of got an idea on what she is motivated by. Maybe if you go left, I go right, he goes center, all of a sudden we might get 2 of the facts, and then we might get lucky, and then we might kill her. Or we might lock her in somewhere, or we might escape or something, and then, you know, there you go. So what is that like? Because, or conversely, it could completely not have any effect as well. So this is where this is super interesting for me. And it also gets more complicated, because I think this is a problem when you have things like Avatar: The Last Airbender and you have Robotech that now have board games, and then they have source material, and then that stuff then influences each other to some degree. And so, because that's where this is like super interesting, and it creates a very, very, very unique problem.
Yeah, it does what I wanted to establish right away in the beginning of the books, and this is book 1, is that because people have asked me, like, okay, if all this stuff is going wrong in the town, why don't they just call the FBI in? Why don't they go do this? You can't.
This is what happened with Raccoon City, guys. That's the deal.
Yeah.
The president. We got a new president. Leon Kennedy's out of the picture. It's all right.
Yeah. Cell phones don't work here. Time moves.
Ashley Graham's fine. That's all I'm gonna say. I mean, I don't know if you know what I'm referencing. Like, I mean, hey. In that game, she's annoying.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta say though, when you beat the game, you put her in a night suit. Best thing ever. Best thing ever. I just like crawl up a ladder in the village. I leave her at the bottom. She falls on the end of the dog. But continue. I digress.
I'm still waiting for the Resident Evil 8 DLC that's supposed to be coming out with Rogue. Yeah, I'm pretty psyched about that one. But yeah,
just remember, guys. Just remember, you can't kill vampires. I mean, don't start me on Resident Evil 8. Please don't. I will legitimately go on for 5 hours with everything wrong with the game. I could have found 15 ways how to kill them in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
2 minutes. It would have been so much easier, and I would have been like, I'm still alive. It would be great. But continue, please.
But yeah, so you learn about the town, and again, that time moves differently there. Cell phones don't work, GPS doesn't work. There's no such thing as the internet, even though again it could be modern times. It's just it doesn't happen there, and the people seem to be accepting of it, and this is just the way it is, and but we'll get to that as we go along.
So to even talk about this as well, because obviously in the board game,
Sure.
you don't get that detail.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also what I think is fascinating too, is that at this point, you got the board game, you got the second one, you got the third one, you got the director's cut, and you have some other stuff, and obviously there's always going to be stuff added in and out, and however you want to cut it in. And I think that there might not be a Slaughterville 4, but there might be a DLC essentially,
Right.
or not, maybe not a DLC, but an expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think you can digitally, expand this game because it's a physical game. But the point is, I think that I'm making is that. But what is this like to provide that additional detail though? Because that's also very important. Let's say I completely disregard the graphic novel, but I take the graphic novel almost like a source book, right? And I think that's where this also gets interesting is that, okay, I'm learning more about this town because you learn stuff about the town in the board game, but you don't learn as much. And I think that's also interesting because we've now entered the realm in games, I feel, where, and I mentioned a few titles, that every major IP has some game out there in the board realm, or it's going to get one. And some of this stuff is just one-offs, and it's just a money grab. And I'm not talking about Naruto Monopoly, which, by the way, is awesome. That's awesome. Dragon Ball Z Monopoly is cool too. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like a real board game, okay? That actually has merit. But some of it does add context, and some of it doesn't. And so, what is that like? Because these books do add source material, and they do provide saying, "Hey, look, this is the town. This is an idea." It also gives it more of a feel. It also gives more of a point of direction. And if I take the gameplay out of it, or your version of gameplay, and say, "Look, I'm just reading this to get a better sense of this fucked up town," for lack of a better word. I'm just trying to understand why things are screwed up, because that does help in certain ways, especially if you're like, man, this game's a lot of fun and I want to know more.
Yeah, I do like that you called it a source book, because again, it does remind me a lot of like the Eberron or the Forgotten Realms kind of a thing, where this isn't going to change so much the method of play. It's not going to give you new mechanisms or mechanics to play in the game, except for the promo cards we give, right? But it does tell you more about the town, so you might actually look at the town differently. You might see like Mr. Figueroa in the antique store. Well, you realize he was a part of the book, so now maybe you have more of a personal connection, and you don't want him to die as quickly as you might have before.
Also, do you feel that it also creates more of an investment into the game? Because this is something that is also interesting, right? So obviously, and I'm going to drop one of my favorite, IPs, Avatar: Last Airbender. So Avatar: Last Airbender had Avatar: Last Airbender. Then they had Korra. They had the graphic novels that continued that. Then what they did is that they're now doing the Kyoshi series in books, and then they just released, I think, another Avatar, which is the third book, which is not Kyoshi. And I didn't read that one yet. But now I'm more invested in those things, and some of that stuff is canon, some of it is not. Actually, I think all that I just said is canon. The graphic novels are canon. The Korra's canon, Avatar: Last Airbenders canon, the books I believe are canon as well, and then a movie's coming out now. I am more invested, and so do you think that these graphic novels create more of an anchor? Because I think that's something that is really interesting, and I don't know how much these board games with these large IPs, such as Batman, or such as Avatar: Last Airbender, or Robotech, or even a Star Trek game, creates an anchor. But I do think that when you do expand into other mediums, depending on what it is, it sometimes does create more of an anchor, even if it's not canon. And so I'm curious if you feel that way as well. or if you feel that, hey, look, this is for the diehard fans, and it also attracts possibly a new audience.
Uh, Pretty much, yeah, to all of it. Also, the Last Airbender movie does not exist. Um, the
I'm talking about the one that was announced at San Diego that's coming.
Oh no, I meant the old one. That one doesn't exist, so we don't talk about the old one. Yeah,
I wasn't talking about that one either.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, this is absolutely a way uh, to bring an emotional connection to the game itself, because you're going to find that, look, like you very early on, you join a group of people which we call the citizens, which I call the people that back the game, the citizens. So those people in that group are actually backers that have paid for cards and paid to be allies and characters and things. So I put them in there. So they're actually going to be some. You can interact with every one of these people in the game. The same thing with different spots in town or different events that happen. Everything there happens in the game as if you were playing through it yourself. So yeah, you're definitely going to have more of a relationship, more of a that emotional connection with the characters, with the different. The only new characters were like Beth and John and Carolyn. Those were new, created um, just for the books, but we did put them in as promo cards, so they do exist in the game for you to find and meet. So.
Yeah, and even going further into this, and I mean, I do want to dive a little bit into the business side of this as well, where I don't know how long it takes you to build an expansion. And I don't know the whole mechanics of game development, both on a cost cycle, on a design cycle. I mean, I'm right now designing my comic class. For me to build and develop and record a PowerPoint, I mean, it is like a week process, more or less. Maybe it's a 4-day process from set to done, fact checking it, recording it, and then making sure it's clean. And obviously, when you're teaching 4 or 5 modules, maybe I can get that thing done in 20 days if I really work hard on it. And look, some things are easier than others. And also, my costs though are extremely low. Where legitimately my costs to do that is practically nothing. I mean, if we were to prorate the use of StreamYard for me, it's maybe for the entire class $20 to develop one entire class. If we were to prorate the use. But over the year, and then I'm not counting electricity or labor. Obviously that stuff is a little bit harder to calculate, but I'm also the sole equity owner, so I own equity, not that. I'm almost salaried, and I don't know how to calculate that per se, but I digress. But do you feel that the books are potentially easier to produce? You write the script, you hand it to an artist, and then the artist does the art, the colors does it, and maybe it's not. The money cycle might be similar, because to produce a comic is expensive, but it's also the time might be faster to some degree as well. And then on top of that, it's also cheaper to say, hey, this is a $15 to $20 graphic novel, and and it also in between, expansions and other games, you can say, hey, I know you're starving for more content with this. And that creates like a secondary, or I guess third level income stream. So what is that like? Because I think that's the side that also people don't want to talk about either, is that to build a board game and then build another one, it could take a while. You're going to go through a dry spell at some point, because you're going to hit all your easy customers, I would imagine, right? And then you're at a con, and then everybody who you sold to has the game already, and they don't need it again.
True. Yeah. It takes, gosh, it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 months per villain to play it, test it. Because again, like you said, you want to make everything balanced. As far as it can take up to a year to make an expansion for the Slaughterville thing.
So let me ask you a question. I'll cut you off. How many villains or heroes or a mixture are there in an expansion? Just give an idea.
I think we have total of 22 different villains. I've been making this game.
In the average expansion, what would be the norm for you? Average range?
4 or 5 per. Yep. Yeah, we try to give you
I asked that
variety.
so people get an idea.
Yeah. And then, as you were saying, the comic, though, again, God bless those people that can do the art as well as the writing. I can't draw to save my life. So I can write the script in maybe 2 weeks because I already know the story. I've been working with it since 2015, right? Even longer because that's when we published. It was 2015. So I know this town. I know the people. I know the villains. It's like easy for me to get into their heads. So I can write that story quickly, then hand it off to the artist, and then I just got to do approvals as they send me pages, right? So that then frees me up to make more games, frees me up to do more script writing. We actually, and again, we didn't finish this up yet, but we're writing scripts to do a web series, live action web series of Slaughterville. So it's not, we would have to do the funding for it and all that other happy joy stuff, but that is something I would love to do. Again, make money or not, I don't care. I care about, I want to do this to get this content out there.
Let's even talk about this because this is something that is super interesting about IP. So there's a lot of stuff, and obviously, I mean, we're going to drop the D word here, and it's not a DC word. And then I don't mean Batgirl. She had a K, and it's not an Andy. I just spoke in a very interesting code, didn't I? I just dropped a lot of references in a very short amount of time. I'm talking about Disney.
Sure.
Disney has invested in a lot of IPs that have not made a profit yet.
Yeah.
Yet, it's very interesting when you're building an IP out because obviously Disney's a publicly traded company. They can lose money. In the short term, they can lose money for 10 years on an IP if they own that IP. I mean, Netflix has had stuff they've kept going but really hasn't made much money, but it doesn't really matter because they have the funding to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is that like for you? Because there gets a position, and at some point, I mean, I'm going to do a comic hangout. This is going to be the question of what is to sell an IP, but even building an IP, what is that like? Because sometimes you have to put a lot of money into an IP. And sometimes the goal isn't to make money, but to make the IP worth more money. So, for instance, if I have an elf as my logo, if I invested a lot of money into that elf, and then I had a comic and a television show and merchandise, and I had a lot of copyright protections and a variety of other stuff, and all of a sudden it could be that IP might be worth $1 million. And then I might somewhere down the line get an offer for like $3 or $4 million. So what is that like? Because I think that's a really good question with Slaughterville and even building a web series and not for money. Because if you go build a web series, and even if it's 6 parts, right?
Yep.
That's going to increase the value of the IP. And I'm not saying you're going to sell it or not sell it, but now there's that. And now the IP might be worth X amount of money. It might not have produced that money, but it has a worth. And so what is that like for you? Because I think that's something that a lot of people, when they create a board game or a comic, they don't understand that component of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'd like this, again, because I'm a storyteller at heart, right? So I would like to see this in a lot of different mediums, And Kevin, the guy that used to do the videos with me when we would play games and stuff, he's actually been really writing the outlines to these scripts heavy. And we've been planning this for years to make it a series. So yeah, anywhere we could get with this, the better. Hell, I thought about, I don't know how much you know about Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from, by the way, of course, those that know me. But we have a little town here called Centralia. Now, Centralia is the inspiration for Silent Hill because this town is permanently on fire. It's run. Nobody's allowed to live there. Smoke's rising from it all the time. I've been there.
Is this the mine town by any chance?
Yes.
So okay. Do you want me to tell the story really quickly of this? some genius decided way back in the day that, cool, I'm going to basically go create a fire. And this mine, in mines, you have air pumps, you have water pumps, and sometimes you have gas pumps. Because if you're mining coal, oil, coal, gas, in case you didn't know, natural gas is just baked oil for a while, in case you didn't know that. And so some genius decided to basically have a fire, and the fire basically caught the gas, and then it went inside the mine. And pretty much what's happened is that ever since that, there's just been so much natural gas that it's not burning off. And they tried cutting off the oxygen because fire needs oxygen. They can't figure it out because oxygen keeps on getting in. And they basically had to buy, the federal government, I think, has had to buy the land, and I think there's 7 or 6 residents left. And after those 6 or 7 residents die, that land is no man's land, and this will eventually lead into every single mine. Is where it's slowly making that fire, and nobody knows what this mine looks like. Nobody knows anything about this. Nobody knows how to solve the problem, and it might be a permanent fire pit for all of eternity. And pretty much every mine in Pennsylvania will eventually catch on fire because of this issue. It's insane, and it's super fascinating. And basically, and then the town over, I think, had to be evacuated. And so it's just gigantic no man's land. And whoever can solve that problem, I guarantee you the federal government will pay you so much money. I mean, I think the federal government will pay them like $50 million. Easy. I don't work for the federal government. Don't quote me on that. But I think it's a $50 million solved problem. Easy. If you can figure out how to do it. But yeah, that's the basic story. But continue.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to buy that kind of a place, some kind of a rundown kind of section, and do almost like the ghost town experience with Slaughterville, where you're actually interacting with actors eventually, and make it a weekend experience. So you would have to go and explore, do our themed villain for the weekend, and
you want to go LARPing. That's what you want to do.
Well, I mean, come on, I'm an RPG guy. Come on. This is not a secret here,
So, because doing a web series and doing LARPing are two different things. I mean, having a Slaughterville camp out would be a blast.
Yeah. We got to build one to get to the other. And again, it's all about, still, everything I'm doing is about you telling your story in this game. Now, sure, I'm telling my story with the graphic novels, and I think people are going to really enjoy it. In fact, we did, when I was down in Savannah, I was down there with Pops. We were at that convention. There was a guy sitting at the one table, and I don't know if you'll know who it is when I describe him, but he looked mean, right? People say I always look mean on camera because that's just the way my face is, damn it. But this guy looked like he was ready to kick you in the face and take your money. But then when you talked to him, the nicest guy in the world was Greg Bo Watson. I talked to him for like 5 minutes, but he looks like he's constantly angry when he was sitting there. And I'm talking to his wife, and I'm like, I don't want to bother him. But then he goes, "Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you." And he's just like giant teddy bear guy. So, I mean, no, he's agreed to do the cover for book 3. He said book 2, it's too close to a launch. And I'm like, yeah, no, dude, I get that. We'll do it for book 3. But yeah, so anything we can do to get people to be able to tell their own stories, or again, the graphic novel is is me giving you more backstory to the game, to make the games more enjoyable, to make everything else more enjoyable. And don't tell anyone, but I have the rights to a certain RPG system. We're doing the Slaughterville RPG probably for next year. This is literally the first time I'm saying anything about it, so that's for you. Yeah, Slaughterville RPG will be coming next year, using the 2D20 system from Modifius. I talked to Chris, and we worked that out. So I'm pretty excited.
This is going to be interesting, and I'm not too sure what that exactly means because
Oh no, it's
again,
okay. Yeah.
I'm sure people who see this are going to have an idea if they're into RPGs. But even going further into the book, I mean, obviously, who do you have doing covers? Because obviously, this is something that's fascinating. And again, graphic novels and books are a little different than comics, but it is a collectible market. And when
Sure.
people want to get something on Kickstarter, sorry, I got a little bit of the hiccups.
That's,
But when people want to get stuff on Kickstarter, they like that niche collectability,
mm-hmm.
and they also say, "Hey, look, I want to get something that is not going to be at a con, or it's going to be limited quantities, or that it's different than what I'm going to get in my local comic shop."
Right.
And so, who do you have doing cover work? Who do you have doing other things? What promos are going to be out there? Also, what price points? Because let's be realistic, I am very pessimistic and very happy at the same time. I know it's all right. I'm a greedy capitalist. I make money when there's recessions. I make money in bear markets and I make money in bull markets. And in bear markets, I buy a lot of stuff, and in bull markets, I sell a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what is all that looking like? Because obviously, I think you keep things relatively affordable on the graphic novel side, but also you do have some cool stuff happening.
Right. Now there's more than a few things, and I'm really glad you brought that up. That was a good thing to bring up because my go-to for my cover B is Mark McKenna.
Who's that? I don't know who that is. I'm
he,
sorry.
he did Deadpool, Justice League, and a lot of Marvel DC work. So he's done the cover B for the last two books. Now, I'll be honest with you. I see people putting out 5, 7, 10 different covers. That's not
Yeah,
me. That's
yeah,
not
we're
something.
going to talk about that because I'm
Yeah.
curious your take on that. But
But
continue.
what I did was for this book 2 campaign is I went to Luke Stone and he did a special cover for me for book 1. There's only going to be 50 of them. That's it. I'll never make another one. Well, okay, 51 because I'm going to have one hanging up behind me. That is it. It's limited to that. So, if
So
you want to
did
get,
Luke do one for book 1, and is he doing one for book 2?
he will. I mean, I'll ask him. I didn't sign the contract, so I can't say he's doing one. But of course, I'll ask him, and God bless him. Hope he says yes. But I'll have him do. He's going to be doing my naked covers because I think a pastor doing the naked cover would be funny. I mean, obviously, there's nobody naked on the cover, but I just mean there's no text on it. It's just going to be art only. And that's what this is going to be. It's going to be book 1's naked cover by Luke. And I have those all on the campaign page when we show it later. And
so even to talk about that,
sure.
in which that obviously one of the things that I hate about Kickstarters right now is when there is no ability to get the backlog or even some of the books where I think it's a mistake, and I think it's a big business mistake where if you have a Kickstarter exclusive, I think it's okay to keep it on Kickstarter, but if you print 100 Kickstarter exclusives, you only sold 50 on campaign 1, I think you should offer it on campaign 2. And I personally think on a business level, you should always have some of your exclusives laying around for the next campaign and for the next campaign to a degree. Obviously, if you're on your 10th book, it's a little bit different to keep a 1 around. But it's the idea that on issue 2, if you print 50, maybe you want to put 5 away because I hate to say this, but you know this and I know this. Money is not an unlimited resource.
Right.
And there's a lot of great projects sometimes that are all running at the same time. October is a rough month, to choose on a customer level. And so if you have a great cover and somebody else has a great cover and somebody else has one, and I can only pick 2, not 3, but then you're running something in February when there's less great projects and the best of the best are not running, maybe I could get that cool one that I couldn't get, back in October. So I think that's something that's a mistake. But anyway, continue, please.
That's always something to think about. It really is. But I like to keep my cover numbers low. 2, 3 at the most, I would think. 3 at the most. Just because of logistics.
Yeah, let's even talk about that because I think this is another thing too, where I got a project, but it's delayed, and I'm sure I'm going to explain why. it's probably going to be delayed till July of next year. Just because I'm going back to school, everybody is where I'm at, and my money's getting tight again. And I'm financially stable to stay alive. I'm just not financially stable to do a project right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to keep my covers down to 4. And it's just cover A, B, C, and D, because logistically it makes sense. Me doing 14 different covers is just a pain in the ass. And it's easier for me to do 4. I like round numbers because I do have to give choice. And also all 4 of those covers are going to be very tactful, where I'm going to be hitting certain demographics for a reason. And I have that down packed. And I also have customer, I guess, points from my other businesses and data points. So those covers are intended for a particular position.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that when you're doing 30 covers, it creates a problem. And you might be doing 50 grand, but 30 covers, if each of your covers costs 300, and let's say that you bought 15 covers, it's still a lot of money to lay out on average. And even if they're doing a new cover and then a regular cover, it's still a lot to lay out. It's a printing headache. It's also printing switching. And even if your company's not charging you that, it's also inventory calculation. It's also booking those covers and then cataloging it. And then also it's figuring out how much you're going to order and all that shit. And then metals.
It increases headaches. It increases the risk of mistakes being made, having that many. I mean,
people don't understand how my eBay business runs. I operate as a small cap. My margins are 42 to 48% per month. Profit margin, not expenditure, profit, which means that if I sell, 5 grand, I'm pulling 48% on that. On the high end, 42 on the low end in profit after I pay my taxes or my shipping, replacing the items, which is unbelievable. Now, if I'm to double what I'm selling, that efficiency goes down. And I think that's something that people don't understand about businesses. And this is a business. Your business is to create something, but when you're running a Kickstarter, it's a logistic product is your business. And I think when you have 14 covers, your efficiency goes down.
Right.
And I think that, that's an issue. And I think that if you were to audit people's Kickstarters who have that, I think that would be a very, very interesting study for a lot of people to do and spot inefficiencies. But I digress. But what else is there out there? Because I know that people can get book 1. I know people can get book 2. I know people can get. Are you only having 3 covers for books 1 and 2, or book 2? I want to say.
The first campaign for each book is always going to have the cover A and B, and then the one after will have the C cover, which is always going to be the naked cover. So that's when you'll get a special cover for book 1. Of course, I'm still going to reprint book 1's cover A. You got to keep the base one in stock. But then we're going to do promo cards, right? And I did contact Fairy Metal, and they're working on getting me the trading card size of each of the McKenna covers. So we're doing that, and we're going to give those
trading cards. What do you mean trading cards? You mean trading cards or metal cards?
It's the trading card size metal cards, like the size you showed me.
Oh, like mine. Like you're confusing me. I'm like, they have another product. Like
no.
Confuse the host. Like,
yeah, no, they called it the TC size, trading card size. So yeah, the smaller, the regular card size.
You mean like the 3.5 by 2.5s, right?
Yeah, 3.5 by 2. Yep.
Yeah. Why don't you say that? You're confusing the host. Good job, man. Good job. Like,
I've known you for like 6 years.
What the hell?
But yeah, I told him. I said, "Yo, Andrew told me to give you a buzz, and he's the one that told me about you." And so I'm getting the 2 covers, the 2 McKenna covers on the trading card size for the metal cards, and I'm thinking about doing for one of the stretch goals. It'll be a metal print. So So there we go.
Yeah,
That's
no,
that's
no, no,
nice.
no. It's important, and obviously there's a lot of stuff out there, and then I'm sure you have a bunch of other stuff as well. And obviously, I mean, I haven't seen the campaign yet, so I'm shooting a little bit in the dark here. I forget. Do you write people into your books? Do you offer other things? I know you're going to probably offer the board game or some version
Yeah.
of that. I think is going to be on this campaign. Obviously, a combo pack, and
Hmm.
I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of a discount if you get everything together. You
Yeah.
know, in that regard, and get some cool stuff out there. And obviously, so what else is there on this entire thing?
We have, of course, a retailer tier. We have our PDF catch up. We have the different covers. We have get all the comics. We have get the comics and the board games. We have the board games as add-ons. We have the different books as add-ons. So yep, it's all here. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's
I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and then obviously, I and look, that's going live. What, August 12th? I want to say.
yes, we're going to be doing it on our Friday show at 9 o'clock. And
And so it's going to be fascinating once it goes live. And right now, I mean, the link's up above everybody in the description, so you can check that out. But I do want to back out of this because I do want to talk about the game industry collectively.
sure.
Again, this is not my area of expertise, so I am shooting completely blind here. I am very, very much new to board games, and I like them. I pick up a few a year, maybe one or two. I play them. I'm not immersed into the culture. There's a lot of other things that I'm immersed into. This is not one of those things. And today is not sharing is caring day. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to keep some of these close to the vest. And I know what everybody's thinking, and you're probably correct. But where do you see the entire game industry going? Because it seems to me that there's people like you who are doing games because they enjoy it. I mean, J.S. Moore's is a good one, and I like him, and he's great with his game. I think it's Jay Moore's, right?
I believe so.
With Faye, I want to
Hey,
say.
yep.
Yeah, I'm making sure I get his name right. And I think he's doing it because he loves it, and obviously he's got a cool IP. But then what you have is that you have what I like to call, very capitalistic people, doing big games that are raising like 15 to 20 million on Kickstarter, and it's becoming very much a gravy train. And I think it's good to some degree for the industry, but I also think it's problematic. And so I'm curious how you view the health of even the board game industry. And then there are other people who are somewhere in between. And then I feel like there are people who are just cash grabbing, just anything they can get their hands on. So what is this like? Because I'm very curious because I don't know what the health looks like for this. I don't know what a healthy gaming community looks like. I don't know what a not healthy thing looks like. And so that's kind of what I'm curious about.
Sure. It's unfortunate that, I mean, I get the need for them, and I understand the business side of it. But if you open up Kickstarter at any time and you go to games and you search new, you're going to find that a lot of them, I mean, a lot of them are going to be just selling STL files. Okay, so that you can print out 3D minis for yourself. And I get it. They're easy to make, or relatively easy, I mean, because you don't have to go through the manufacturing process. Um, and it's something that you can get a constant return of investment on. So I get it, but that's not a game. It's the file, uh, or it's going to be RPG supplements, which again, they take time to make. Um, but as far as the board game, miniatures game, that
So,
kind of
so
a,
let me table that for a second. So
sure.
even with an RPG supplement, and whether it's
Hmm.
digital or even if it's just a deck of cards, I mean, do you think that the issue with it is that they're overcharging? And what I mean by
Um,
this is that if somebody says to me, "Hey, Andrew, I have software, right? So I
right.
bought software that helps me in social media, and I paid $10 for it. Technically, that software probably speeds up my hashtagging by maybe 20 minutes when I'm really hashtagging effectively. I could do that same thing without software, but it was $10. So I don't feel like I was being overcharged for it. And if they have one that's directed for Facebook and it's $20, I'm gonna probably buy it because I'm not being overcharged for it. It's when
Right.
they charge me $100 for it, and I'm like, that's where I'm at. So do you think that that's part of the issue? Is that it's like, hey, look, I got an STL file, $5 get you all this, and we're good, and then they throw them out every 2 months, or is it that they're asking $40 for it and then throwing it out every 3 weeks? Because there's and look, I'm a capitalist and I got no problem if people are paying for it, but there is also a question of what's hurting the industry and what's not, because it's kind of like if you kill the cow or you stare the cow 4 times,
Yeah.
Miss Moo is not coming home to her calves. Just saying, guys, it's going into my stomach as a hamburger, but that's not the point.
Right. Yeah, I don't think
And
the S.
her milk's the cheese. So I just want to make that crystal clear.
I
I have
don't
a
think
very dark sense of humor.
I don't think the STL files or the RPG supplements are killing the industry or anything, but it is disheartening when you're trying to find the new board games, right? And it's these types of projects that are taking up most of the new, which I'm sure you may be aware that exposure within the first few days on a project is important. Okay, and maybe if they had a separate category for something like that, oh, this is an STL file category, and I believe they already do have an RPG category, but when games that I would miss are pushed down below the load more, um, because of projects like this, it can hurt. It can hurt their chances of success. And that's an unfortunate thing. Now, if I were specifically looking for STL files, the prices and the quality on a lot of them are really, really good. I'm not going to argue about that. I think they're really good as for what they're offering. But I personally think that maybe they should have a separate category for it.
So do you think the problem here is that it's marketing? Because to me, I mean, I think that that's the general problem with a lot of things
Well,
right now. And I think a lot of people have no idea how to market. I think a lot of people who do this professionally have no idea how to market. And I think we look at, and me and Raven were talking about Eric July. I
yeah,
mean, think about Eric July, and I'm very honest about this, and even a Brandon Sanderson, and nobody wants to talk about it. I'm going to say it, is it repeatable on a massive global scale? Because if it's not repeatable, it's a fad. If it's the model that we should all copy, then it's a system. And that's the real question. When you look at people who are doing 100, 300,000, we look at anybody in any industry that's killing it, is it repeatable? I'm
right.
right now teaching a class. My objective is to get you up to where I'm at so you're repeating what I'm doing and you're just saying, cool, it works, the system works. I just need more gasoline on the fire,
Yeah.
because that is a trend and that is a system. The question is that, and I think that that might be part of the problem, is that it's marketing and it's also standing out and it's also saying, hey, how do I figure out how to beat the system? And
Hmm.
and that's I think part of the issue is, per se.
Sure. Again, speaking of Eric's, he built a hell of a fan base, right? Tons and tons of fans. And you're right, they came to him because of, did they come because of the book or did they come because of the political fan base? See, that's the hard thing. Again, the repeatable part. And I looked at the campaign thing and it only had a couple of images, couple of pages. I don't know what the book's about, kind of a thing. So I
So
mean, it's like,
I'll give a great example. I have a friend, Santine Phoenix. If you don't know what happened, Google the name. You'll figure it out real quick.
mhm,
She's a friend. Her husband may or may not be her husband. I don't know what's going on. Look, I know them both. I am neutral on what happened. Um, in that entire company, that entire circumstance. So if you come at me and you Google the name, hopefully you realize that I have no comment on a professional. But I came to her project because I'm her friend. She's been on my show, and a lot of people came to her project because she's built a name in the Dungeons and Dragons community. And so it raises a question. That project did like 325,000. So, there gets to a point where you build a fan base. I would hope that people want to come to this show who's like, hey man, you're interviewing really interesting people and you're building a fan base and you're talking about all this stuff. And so it raises questions that I'm hoping that people say, I want to use your sponsor. I want to use Mixum as a printer. People came and used Mixum as a printer because I recommended it and they wanted to support what I was doing and they liked the price point. And so my whole position is that I think this is where this gets really tricky with Eric, in July, where it's like he created a woke campaign and he then got on Fox, then he created a fear of missing out. Mm-hmm. And I think Brandon Sanderson is very similar, where the talent is there with Brandon. No question. I've read books by Brandon. I think he's a great writer. But but also the other side is the opposite, where he has a small publishing house, in which that he is his own publisher now. And then I asked the question saying, and the biggest pet peeve I have is like, this is the future. Anybody can do it. I'm like, but you can't. You don't have the infrastructure. You don't have it's not a talent issue. It's the issue. Do you have the infrastructure? Do you have the ideas? Do you have the actual capital to do it? And do you have the fan base? And do you have the idea of creating FOMO? And that's the issue. But, and I think this is where all this marketing and even getting noticed comes from. And me and Raven were talking about this, where once a year or twice a year, somebody figures it out on Kickstarter. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, the ad that I'm gonna run for my class is taking $20, turn it into this, turn it into that. You're gonna show $20 and show a comic book, and then I can show $60, and saying, can you really afford not to triple your money, or better yet, I'll even ask, do you want to make money with comics, or do you want to get rich with comics? Can you afford not to add zeros to your name during a recession? All that stuff creates fear, and that's what both those campaigns did. If we really go psychology-wise, both those things created fear and missing out and saying, I'm not in the cool kids club anymore. Mm-hmm. Newsflash, that's not the cool kids club. Cool kids club and all the cool kids right now are all the kids who have their Pokemon cards and got shoved into a locker and got their arm broke but kept their Mewtwo card or their Charizard in perfect condition and sold it for $10K. Mm-hmm. Those are the cool kids. Their arm hurts, but guess what? They got a $10,000 check because of their Charizard card.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with, I don't know if you read Berserker.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Did you? I fell off
every
of it.
Character, but the main guy was
after like the third or
fantastic.
Fourth issue, I fell off of it. So I'm like, does it have more than Keanu Reeves to go along with it?
No, I love everything but Keanu Reeves. I'm kidding.
Screw that. No. Keanu Reeves is supposed to be really a nice guy. I never met him personally, but I heard he's a really nice guy.
I made some good money on it. Well, I bought 10 of the foil covers for a cheap price, and then I made about $20 on the 10, where I made a little bit of money. But my point is, I continue.
Again, would you have bought them? Would you have bought that book if it did not have Keanu Reeves? Good.
Probably not.
See, and that's the thing. Just like the one that has Wesley Snipes attached to it.
Guy didn't show up on my show, but that's okay.
Oh, didn't
he? I'm sore from that point. I'm very sore from that point.
I wasn't aware of that.
He ghosted me, and I don't appreciate it. I got no problem calling it out. I got no problem because the effort that goes into this show, I found it disrespectful. I found it massively disrespectful. To be very honest, I found it unprofessional, and I got no problem. And you know what is? That's what we're doing on this show now, is that we're calling out bullshit. And I found it unprofessional. I found that he didn't take it seriously. And you know what is? I found it offensive. I did. I got no problem saying it. I don't. If you're running a $150,000 campaign with Wesley Snipes and you don't know how to treat an interview and just play it off coy when I'm working my ass off, disrespectful. I don't give a shit if you're the biggest person in the world or the smallest. it is what it is, and I found it disrespectful. I really did, and I'm very public about it. But I just ruined your chances to work with him, so I'm sorry.
I don't think that was ever going to happen.
I mean Wesley Snipes. I don't mean Adam. I mean Wesley.
Well, he's coming over next Friday for barbecue. No, and then there was again, I'm horrifyingly bad with names. Sanderson, I know his book, Mistborn, right?
I enjoyed the Wheel of Time stuff he did. Look, I think he's a good writer, but and look, I'm not attacking him. I'm attacking
no.
idea with it's a little bit different with Adam. It's a little bit different with Keanu, because with Brandon, I just think that he cracked the code and then he created fear of missing out. But everybody thinks, oh, it's never been done. He did it before for $6.2 million. So what the fuck are you guys talking about? Nobody did their research on it. Sorry.
No. What I was getting at with his was, people may not realize he also has, I should say, continuing a series of board games, the Mistborn series board games. Adventure games are out. So, I mean, it's another thing where you're taking the story and translate. And he went the opposite way that I did, took the story into the game, where I took the game into the story. But it's just funny that similar paths are crossed there. So yeah, it's definitely possible to branch into these different mediums. Now, again, I don't know about the FOMO stuff. I'm not a fan of it. I think too much of it can kill a project. I understand the investing part, where you want to make something exclusive. You want to make it where people want to get that special thing.
But I think it's complicated with these items. I really do. Where I think that, we look at Adam's book and the Wesley Snipes book, and Wesley Snipes signs it. And I get it. If you're a Wesley Snipes fan, it's cool. But what does that look like on the secondary market? I don't know what it looks like on the secondary market. No offense, but that book, the only thing with a Wesley Snipes autograph is that it's got Wesley Snipes autograph on it.
Yeah.
Like with Brandon Sanderson's exclusive rare books, again, I don't know what that looks like on a secondary market. And this is the whole problem, right? We look at a company like Zenescope. We look at a company like Dynamite. There are some serious expensive Dynamite books. We look at companies like DC with J. Scott Campbell, and Marvel with Campbell, and with Clayton Crane, and Moko Peach, I want to say. I think that's her name, hopefully. Or Peach Momoko. I'm sorry. I got it mixed up.
Yeah.
It took me sometimes to get those names switched up. But, the idea is that those people on certain books connect. And I think this is where it gets tricky. And this is where I think the whole fear of missing out has gotten way out of hand, because I think people have actually become bad at judging. I seriously think people have become bad at judging. And I don't think with that Wesley Snipes book in 3 years, we're going to be giving a shit about it. I don't foresee it. I think with a Clayton Crane book, in 5 years, we're not going to want that Clayton Crane book, because it's already happened. Mm-hmm. There are books. Spider-Man 601, the Mary Jane cover by Campbell, is a well sought out book that people want. And I know this because I bought mine for $50 and I sold it for $120 a little while ago, and I have a 9.6 that I can easily sell for like $250 that I bought for like legitimately $65. It is a well sought out book. And there are a lot of artists like that, because they're on amazing runs with well-established companies. But again, that's just, and this is my problem, is that I think it's all artificially inflated. And this is where I think, and then people look back and they're like, man, that stuff from 10 years ago that got canceled, man, that was good. I mean, I don't know if you remember the show Freaks and Geeks.
Yep.
Brilliant show. That show should not have been canceled. And people are genuinely upset 10 years after, like, how did this show get canceled? And this is how it happens. And I don't think that board games and everything else in Kickstarter world is any different. I think it's all the same. But enough of me pontificating.
It's funny you brought up 601, because honest to God, with everything going on, it almost slipped my mind. There's going to be a future cover for the Slaughterville graphic novel where somebody took the succubus that I have in the one villain and did that in pretty much that pose. Just as it like I didn't tell them to do it. They just said they wanted to draw it for me, and I'm like, I need to buy that, and that is going to be a cover because that was just you couldn't pass that up.
No,
So yeah, that will be an upcoming cover.
So obviously there's a lot of stuff. I just ruined my career, but I'm at the stage where you notice. Here's the thing, everybody. My career in comics is gonna go up, down, and around. But I'm an investor, and my class is gonna teach you how to invest. And I was on somebody's show that I'm gonna be pushing out this weekend, and I mean it's like 45 minutes of me going through a lot of cool stuff, and me talking about it. You know, I draw on my iPad in like the whiteboard app. And I explain how to make a lot of money, and my drawings are savage, I say. But I don't know if you got anything else.
So do you want me to ruin my career right now?
No, please don't, please don't ruin your career. I do not want you to ruin your career anytime soon. I'm going to do that for you, free of charge.
I'll jump in with you.
Just no. It's I don't care anymore, and I'm very open about it. Where what happened to me in January, it took me about 8 months to realize that I do not care. And you know what it is? I feel much liberated. There's a lot of people who have gone through a lot of stuff in comics, and I feel very, very, very liberated that I do not care. And I'm just speaking my mind, and I will deal with every single consequence accordingly. And if people have beef with me, let's talk about it. Is all I'm going to say if I want to. And that's the whole point, is that most of the people do not have an influence on my life, and I'm cool with that. But anyhow, obviously, we've been talking for a while. I am curious how SavannahCon went, and then I'm going to give you a chance to self-promote yourself.
Oh, nice. SavannahCon went pretty well. Honestly, the first day there, I spent demoing Gone Hunting, which is our new board game that we're doing in September. People loved it. I mean, it went fantastic. I had somebody actually come up and say, "This thing is going to be so huge, I want your autograph." So I had a print and play copy of the rule book. They just wanted the cover signed, so I'm like, here you go. So that was pretty neat. I mean, it went real well. Me and Big Sexy Outdoors were doing that one. There were some technical difficulties, you know, as you're going to have sometimes, but overall everything went well. Yeah, he was asking about the great race back home. I had to fly up I-95 in order to try to get him back to catch a bus to get home. It was definitely a trip. Met a lot of great people. You know, it was fun. I almost got to ride an alligator, but it wouldn't come close enough, so I couldn't get to ride an alligator. I totally would have done that.
There's always next year.
Yep.
But we digress there. There was an incident that happened Saturday night. I recommend you Google it. Let's just say America did with 3 eyes. I'm speaking in code. Integrity, intelligence,
and intensity.
In intensity, yes. There's definitely some very, very interesting things, and I don't know what happened, but I'm sure that if you Google it, there are many, many stories. But you know, all I'm gonna say is vote for Rhino. And don't say, just nod if you know what we're talking about. You know. But yeah, and then obviously I'm gonna give you a chance to self-promote. So where can people find you, follow you? Where can people come to you now that your and my career is over? And yes, we are canceled. I am creating cancel. I am taking that. You know, we will have a wrestling match with Comics Gate on one side and Cancel Gate on the other. It will be fun. And we will have I guess, progressive ref. It'll be fun. I'm sure Comics Gate will be happy to be on the opposite side of Cancel Gate. It'll be great. It'll be fantastic. But all jokes aside, where can people find you?
Let's see. So, of course, I do the Laughing Rogue on Facebook. We have the Laughing Rogue YouTube channel where we do every Friday and Wednesday. Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday at noon Eastern. where we talk about the comics and stuff. And we do Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern with Big Sexy Outdoors, where we talk about outdoor stuff, you know. And let's see, we have, of course, laughingrogue.com. That should be back up and running by now. And the next project, again, we're going to launch it live next Friday on the channel. So hope everybody will be there. I do want to say a good friend of mine, Tanner, he did just launch his book, Rin. He's almost halfway to funded already, and it's only been about an hour. So I'd encourage everybody to check him out. He's a good guy. I met him down there, too, in Savannah, since we were talking about that. Yeah, he's a heck of a good guy. But, yeah, looking forward to selling the games, the books. And listen, if you don't, Mr. Andrew, I know you hate when I call you that, but anyway, if I didn't get you a copy of something yet, please, dear God, remind me, because my brain is slipping some days. Remind me, I'll hook you up. You know where I'm at.
It's all good. This
shouldn't be the last time we talk. I know it's the last paid interview thing, but this shouldn't be the last time we talk.
Honestly, at this point, you know, I'm sneaking a lot of people in when I can. Things are just getting tight, time-wise in my world, and also October is going to be a very different thing because I'm going back to school, and so I don't know what that looks like. Just on a time constraint. I also don't know how tired I'm going to be, and it might be that I'm out for 3 weeks figuring out a lot of stuff, or it might be that I'm on a lighter schedule. I'm very open about it. It's not a money problem; it's a time problem, which means that, you know, you're going back to school for something. You know, it is you need to maybe get back into the rhythm of things. So, you know, you might not see me for like 2 weeks because I'm getting into the groove of something. And I might be doing some traveling in September for a week for a personal reason. And so there might just be some spaces, but I'm getting a lot of people in, and things are interesting and things are going on. And so I'm sure that at some point I'll get you in the next 4 months. But again, I don't know what it looks like. And that's the whole thing, is that it's just that I got an opportunity and I'm making the most of it. And that affects, because it's a short issue, but I digress right there. But anyhow, we can talk about that. Y'all can, I'll be keeping everybody informed on all that. It's super exciting, but I don't want to dive too much into it until I get the official acceptance letter. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to keep saying it. You have to support indie. What that means, and I'm going to be very open about it, is when people have campaigns or Indiegogo's, or buy me coffees, or PayPal links, or they have merch, you gotta buy that stuff. You know, if somebody is running a campaign, they got an eBay store, they got a, you know, Teespring, they got, you know, their own website, they got a Shopify store, or they just have, hey, you know, buy me a coffee or donate money to my PayPal, or they got something going on, or you see them at a con, you gotta, you know, drop the $5, $10, $15 if you got it, the $20. It does go a long way. It does make a huge difference. But I get it. Look, right now, money's tight in my world. But you know what it is? You know what's free? Sharing. Sharing a project out on social media is absolutely free. And you know what it is? You don't have to have a campaign and want me to interview you to share it out. You're like, this is a cool interview, man. That's awesome. Let me like it. Oh, man, really enjoyed you interviewing so-and-so. Cool. You know, because that goes a long way. You could share it on your wall on Facebook. You can share it in your Instagram story. Hell, you can, you know, share something that I'm doing. Somebody just did that and cut a video of me with a good friend of mine in a funny shirt that I was wearing that he designed. And I'm like, oh, snap, that's good for me on media because I was tagged in it. And now a bunch of other people were like, oh, cool. And now a bunch of other people sort of came to my channel. And that's the thing, is that, you know what, it's free. So you can share out Chris' project. You can share out what Chris is doing. You can share out Chris's YouTube videos. You can share out my stuff. And guess what? It's not going to cost you anything. And it's going to make a difference. Because you know what? Maybe somebody you know is going to become a fan of me. And so that's something that I recommend. And if you do support economically, you should support on social media. But you should be supporting on social media regardless. And so I recommend people doing that. And then as far as I'm concerned, obviously, I buy me a coffee. I appreciate when people actually support this show because it is independent and it does make a difference. You know what it is? If you buy indie comics and you really want to support indie, I'm kind of calling you out a little bit. You should be supporting podcasts too, just the same way. It makes a difference, and you should be doing it, and I should not have to ask. It should be automatic. And I'm very adamant about that. Furthermore, though, if you're like, hey, I don't want to support you, but I want to be on your show, you know what it is? Figure out how to get in my good graces. Figure out how to do it. It's not hard. It's not, and I'm going to tell you right now how to do it. Money is helpful. So if you don't want to do the money side, find me a guest. Bring me a friend. Bring me somebody I don't have access to. Guess what? Bring me an audience. Throw me on your email list if you got one. Throw the interview when it's live on the email list. Promote it on your wall before, during, and after. Share it out, or bring something of knowledge into the conversation beyond your book. And so when I'm interviewing, I was just on a show talking about alternative investing, and for 45 minutes, the host was like, dude, you just blew my mind. And he's actually going to a comic shop, and he's going to be spending this week $100. He's going to come on my show. I'm going to talk about what he bought because of my recommendation. And then for the next year, he's going to be going over this and like spending $1,000 in comic book investing after he takes my class. So again, he was blown because unlike every other guest he had, they're all talking trading tips. I was talking alternative investing, which brought knowledge to the discussion. So I recommend that. I also got my comic class coming, and I have my T-shirt. So if you really want a Gundam T-shirt, guys, buy this. If I sell 20 of these, I get to build a new shirt, and I already have a pretty cool idea. So I would like to add another shirt to that. So go buy my T-shirt, everybody. If you're a Gundam fan. If you're not a Gundam fan, I get it. Don't worry about it. Again, it's meant for a specific group. But if you are into anime, Gundam, and making fun of things, there you go. And you love Char's Counterattack, boom, that's your shirt right there. So that's everything I got. Again, Substack is coming in like 2 weeks, and first class will drop, and it's behind a paywall. Same thing on Locals, it's behind a paywall. So if you want to learn how to do this, and you want to learn how to make money, you want the fundamentals, because that's what we do. We build the house. And so that's where we're starting. It's looking like it's going to be 22 hours. I'm halfway through. And it's a beast of a class. It's a beast. And won't the college guys, that's the type of class it is. But on that note, I'm going to give you the final word. After I pontificated enough. My voice is sore now, which is not good.
Yeah. Yeah, again, go ahead, grab the Slaughterville book. And yeah, like he was saying, jump out, check out the indie creators. If you want it to continue, you got to support it. If you're not here for that, it's going to be gone, just like anything else. Now, don't support anything you don't believe in. Don't support anything that you're not interested in. But, it costs you literally $0 to share something. It costs you $0 to talk about it. But yeah, other than that, join us on the Laughing Rogue YouTube channel as well as this one, which I did already share this video out. And we'll be there next Friday at 9 o'clock to launch this sucker.
Well, I think that's a wrap. And I think that's a perfect place to end, everybody. So have a good one.
All right, we'll see you.